Hello, traders. This is Blake Morrow with Trader Summit. And with me today, I have Mr. Mark Randall, co-founder of AlphaMind. How are you, Mark?
Hey, very well from London. Blake, good to see you.
It's good to see you. And I am on the other side of the pond and then a stretch of land in between. So good to have you here today. I wanted to introduce you really to the Trader Summit community because your specialty is something that I feel as a trader personally is something that every trader needs. You work with traders in more of a psychology standpoint point of view. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do at AlphaMind?
Sure, we work on the mindset and sort of behavior aspects of trading and developing self. You know, the power of the person is a significant force that's very much untapped. People often ask me, "Can you make me a better trader?" And I start off by saying, "Like, first, I need to make you a better you. I need you to kind of just regulate yourself and the ecosystem around you." So we work upon that self. We work upon that ecosystem, and that ecosystem can be a corporate system that surrounds it. It can be a corporate culture.
Sure.
It can be a leadership culture. It can be executive culture. It can be the ecosystem around the sort of trades that you're doing and kind of understanding some of that based upon some of our own experiences. So we kind of look at the whole and develop it from some things that we know that people just don't pay attention to. You know, the idea of weaponizing the mind is often the way we've placed it, particularly in this world where, you know, performance and peak performance is pretty key. And we're looking to develop and arm this weapon that you can create from this ecosystem through yourself into the market. Very, very often, because we're not managing self and because we're not managing ecosystem, what we're putting out is a weapon that turns mid-flight and actually points straight back at us. And all we're doing is we're going in defensive mode, you know, trying to protect ourselves from this own thing that we've created. And so when we've dragged that into a complex markets environment, you know, how aware are we going to be of the market? How aware are we going to be of the process, right? Are we going to fall over rapidly and foul and just dwell on fouling? Well, in that state, you will. So AlphaMind is tuned into all of those various elements about what can we tweak, what can we shift, you know, what can we do about you? And I think, you know, the concept of hydration, much discussed in the military, not discussed in trading, but you're up there as 80% water. And if you start getting dehydrated at the top of your head, the thing that's losing water the quickest is whatever's on top. So hydration is important, oxygen is important. So all of those elements we're looking at and going into systems or speaking with traders, whatever they are, or even sales guys and brokers, you know, which are quasi traders. If you come from that market, you know what I mean. And just saying, how can we make you better? How can we optimize you? How can we really, really tune you into peak performance?
That's interesting. You know, even just with a few minutes of listening to you, I feel better about myself already as a trader. So let me ask you this: as a trader, you know, looking at you, and by the way, your partner is Stephen Goldstein, who I've met over the course of the last year in the Traders Summit community. We've had him as a guest speaker in the past at one of our panel events, but. Why should I, as a trader, seek help from you, Mr. Mark Randall? Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I was a day one trader on the London International Financial Futures Exchange, so open outcry trader. That was in the early 1980s, and I thrived and survived, you know, stupid markets through the 80s, through the 90s, cultural change, leadership change, product change. Flow acceleration, where Thatcher suddenly opened up the markets to the whole world, and we went from doing this amount to that amount of everything. Yeah, and having to get your head around that. I was lucky that in the 80s, this is how luck looks strange when you look back at it, but it was luck. I was getting sort of panic attacks and blackouts because of the pressure. Couldn't go on an underground train without feeling as though someone was strangling me because I was carrying that stress into all sorts of environments. I also suffered from a back condition called ankylosing spondylitis, which is arthritis of the spine. And so that was giving me all these reasons to suddenly, you know, find life a bit difficult. And I actually was speaking to my mother, and she said, look, your grandmother was really interested in healing. Go and find something on healing. I thought, really? So I went to something called a library and found a research piece on healing, and it pointed me into this direction of this, if you look at it today, it's kind of quasi-mindfulness, but it was like exercises for the brain, and just these ways of using the breath and visualizations to just kind of sort yourself out. And I committed to this, and that's a really important word. So I committed to this process of change and stuck with it. Within weeks, calmer, more positive. I was dealing with complex things that I'd normally walk away from, more engaging in terms of relationships, building better business. I guess what I found a secret weapon. And so I developed that through the years. I was running the broken desk of Greenwich NatWest when Greenwich were quite literally masters of the universe. They turned up on us on the scene, and we suddenly thought, okay, this is how you do it.
Right.
They were like stealing people from Goldman's rather than the other way around. So that's what was going on there. So we had to kind of grow up, but my attitude, my mental capability kind of helped me take on that role. Anyway, so right away through the noughties and into the teens, I was in futures, and I was developing complex things with the commodity world. And, in the background, you have a trading instinct, because if you're a broker, there's an awful lot of trades that end up being your trade for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So you need to be supermarket aware and, of course, portfolio aware, because a trader is focused on that. But as a broker, you were kind of looking at all these ideas and opportunities and packaging up for a trader to understand, and then how to risk manage and to look at in terms of profitability, all that sort of thing. And I then got to position Mind Fitness into the RBS NatWest Global Business, and it just went bananas. It just went bonkers. And I was busier delivering Mind Fitness and mental capability programs than I was doing futures, which sounds a bit odd.
Interesting. So that's how you made the transition. Wow.
And so the transition kind of happened from a legacy DNA piece that kind of had this moment that got brought to the surface in me. And then as soon as the business saw that I had this capability, it kind of, futures gets, I was bored of the bank conversations. It was like, my line manager had just like nothing to do with what I was doing, because I was doing stuff that was helping people flourish and survive. And you start to understand that, traders, ops guys, IT guys, and then it extended beyond the business as I became a consultant. You started to understand that it wasn't really about the job, as that some people had some horrific things going on in the background domestically. Sure. And it was all about having a toolkit to deal with that and bringing about, the proper work-life balance and all that way of really optimizing your ecosystem, to drive you going forward. And so I became someone really involved in building up people's ecosystems so they could perform better in whatever they were doing. So I didn't really start with the fact that I was going to make you a better trader. I was going to start with the fact I'm going to make you a better you first.
That's, it's so interesting, Mark. I feel that your aspect of the business is probably one of the most, I don't want to say it's the most overlooked, but it is quite overlooked, and quite often traders they think about process, and they think about, what can I do better to yield a better result from, whether it's an execution standpoint or it's the way I'm viewing the markets. But a lot of times it's really just deep inside and fighting some of those inner demons. And so with that being said, being a trader and working with trading psychologists over the years, how many years have you been working with people, would you say, since you made that transition that happened to you to today? How many years has that been?
Well, that's been about 6. But actually, if you look back through my career, I was doing stuff within the business that was essentially what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because actually people were coming to me and saying, can you help me with this? And when you look back, when you have these kind of skills and that sort of attraction,
yeah,
people tend to come to people that they think are wise for whatever reason. Yeah?
Sure. And with your knowledge and many years of doing this, you have a very good sample size of traders that you've worked with. So what would you say, I want to phrase this correctly, and maybe you can help me along the way with traders that you've worked with. What would you say is the most common I don't want to say like worst trait of a trader, but what is the most common trait that you've come across that you can say, well, across the spectrum, I deal with this the most? What would that be?
Well, if you look at the people that stood out as being bad traders, irritable, right? Looking as though they were stressed all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Impatient, really bad to be with,
That's
very,
interesting.
very loud, very boastful of things that often they were trying to make bigger than they actually were, to say they always made money when actually you kind of knew that they weren't.
Holy cow. Are they all on social media? Because I think I see them all on Twitter. I'm just kidding, joking about that.
You know what I mean, right? So that was, we just looked through an awful lot of them.
Sure.
That was a comment. Another thing was that they had very poor education based around markets. So they kind of maybe just got into the role and did a job as it was, a 9-to-5 job.
Sure.
And they didn't embrace the fact that they needed to learn. They needed to read. They needed to learn technique about themselves, learn the market, about the product, even the appropriate foundation and things like technical analysis. You go around trading rooms and look at some of the technical analysis people are doing on screens. Even to this day, you will conclude that 95% of people that are trading now for professional businesses have not got a clue what they're doing.
It's a great point. Great point.
Haven't got a clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you start to get, so that defines bad. So that, to me, that's bad. And you see bad very, very often. And you see people that almost the lastminute.com, payrolls coming up, and it's like, okay, I need to put a buy stop in there just in case it takes off with a take profit up here. I want to put a sell stop in at the same time. And I'm like putting this stuff in and take profit on the sell stop, and they wait for payroll to come out, and bang, that's their trade. That's their trade of the week. I saw the worst trade ever was when someone put that in. It was so stupidly busy that the buy stop got triggered on the way up at market in a fast market that got filled above the sell price.
Above the ask, right?
Right. And within, I don't know, seconds, the market had collapsed, triggered the sell stop, and the sell stop got triggered half a T-bond point below the take profit buy level. And you explain that to someone that had a 10 billion euro fund.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
In 1,000 contracts per trade.
And you think, so you're working with an institutional sized trader that really shouldn't be dealing in those sizes. I mean, just let's be honest here, but that's pretty wild, Mark. I look around.
Absolutely true.
Yeah, but being in the business as long as I've been, and I've never traded for a bank. So I've done a lot of facets in this business, and I've traded a lot of different instruments, most at that. But it's amazing after so many years. You'd still see a lot of people that control large amounts of money that do make quite often those types of mistakes. But let me ask you this then, and we're going to end it on a positive note. So with your sample size and all the traders and people you've worked with over the years, what would you say is the most common easy fix where people can start? Like I've got all sorts of problems. You open up my book and you're like, wow, holy cow, you do this, you do that. But where would I start? What would be the most common place for me as a trader to start working on?
Well, good journaling is important. I think a lot of people focus on that.
Yeah.
But if you put something in the journal that's a negative, that was a bad moment, write it in like size 2 font or something. So when you look back in time, it doesn't like hit you in the face as a negative, right?
Right.
Because from a mindfulness point of view, it's all about triggers and tripwires. And you don't want to be inadvertently tripwiring yourself into a negative thought process about a disaster, and you're bringing yourself back in time to that disaster so that you can't let go and you're reliving that disaster. You want to try to avoid that. So that's number one tip. Second tip is, the ability to step away, but step away physically and get out in the garden and get some fresh air, and find a place that is where you just sit and you just tune into the environment. Nothing breathing or anything. Just sense the smells and see what you can see how many colored greens you can see, and just tune into your senses of wherever you are outside of you sitting in front of a trading screen, and fit that into your day, even if it's like 20 seconds. But little pauses, little and often, will keep this fresh. It'll keep it market ready. In trading, that's what you want it to keep you market ready, and it will keep your awareness aware and attentive, because all this stuff gets in your way if you don't manage it. So keeping yourself aware, staying aware, looking for opportunity, making yourself awake to the moment, and that's a very critical point. All this is about waking up. It's not about falling asleep. It's about waking up to the moment that is the market. That is the only way you'll be able to manage and see any opportunity.
Well, Mark, there's a lot to unpack here, and I have to say that spending this short period of time with you has been very beneficial to me. What I'd like to do the next time we meet up, we're going to unpack my mind a little bit, and maybe we can work on some issues that might be so common or more common to some of the other traders out there. And I think you might actually have fun with this, and I might cringe a little bit. How about that?
I would say that one of the best traders, the best trader I ever knew, just to leave you on something else for the audience.
Okay.
He wasn't a trader. He looked at the market philosophically, and he looked at the market as a vibration rather than a bunch of lines, right?
Yeah.
He made more money than anybody I've ever known, and for 7 years never took a loss.
Wow.
And every trade he booked made money. I know what he was doing, but there are rare cases of people out there that are genius, that have thought it through, that spent the time. I sent him 2 years of point and figure charts when he was trying to work out what to do. That's how much work he did to work out the way he was going to trade. And he was not a trader. He had no screen in front of him, and he made more money than I've ever known anybody in the markets make. And actually, of some of the people I've met on the retail side, there are some traders out there that are retail traders that are better than most professionals.
Well, and you know what? Without going too far into it, I'm actually taking notes right now. I think I know why, but people are going to have to wait for our next meeting. And Mark, I truly appreciate our time here, or your time with us here at Trader Summit. So how do people find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. So alpha-mind.net is a brand new glorious website, which shows the work of Steve and I. It shows you how to contact us. It shows you where our Twitter feeds are on AlphaMind 101 and AlphaMind 102. We're all over LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn channel called AlphaMind as well that people can join, and that's got about 20,000 members or something. So we've got a lot of thought leadership going on, but plug in on LinkedIn, tune in on Twitter. I think Steve has just got this automatic feeder thing for tweets, so he's got loads more tweets than myself. But every now and then I say something sensible. But they're composite. So they're our ways of looking at us and finding out a bit more about us. And of course, anyone that feels as though it's that they need some further professional guidance, then of course they can find more about our services there.
Great, Mark. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. And like I said, I look forward to our next meeting. And guys and gals, you can find out more about Mark Randall and what he does with his partner Stephen down below in the link below. You can get directly to their site as well. And make sure you're checking back at tradersummit.net, because we actually post some of their podcasts here on our site. So, Mark, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Yeah, great. Great you mentioned the podcast. Yeah, we got a great podcast as well.
I love the podcast. I actually, it's one of the things that I do when I walk an hour at night is I listen to your podcast. So thank you.
The top 5 trading psychology podcasts. So we're more viewed than CNBC and people like that.
Woo! And by the way, I think I'm gonna be on there in the next couple of weeks. Ours is getting released. So.
Rumor has it. There's a rumor.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Have a great one, and thanks for spending your time with us.
Welcome. Well, farewell from London. Take care.
All right. Take care.